Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Danish jazz saxophonist Anders Bast. He reached out to Neon Jazz during the COVID-19 summer with new material, and we were curious. We spoke with him on July 24, 2020 about his latest CD, Through Space and Time. He has a rich history of music and a great jazz story, so please get to know him and dig this interview.
Yeah. Hi, Joe Domino. This is Anders Bast.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, too.
Hey, thank you for sending the vinyl in the mail. I love it, man. It's a great album. I really enjoyed listening to it, so thank you very much.
Oh, that's awesome. I just want to, to get out to as many interested people as possible.
And I'm looking forward to playing it for my audience. So let's talk first and foremost about Through Space and Time. Talk to me a little bit about it. It's a very unique sound. It's not a traditional jazz sound. Talk to me about how you put this album together.
Yeah, so during the last few years, I had kind of a band that was my band that is called the Bastards. But the lineup changed, For some time, it was a piano player and then alternating a guitar player and piano player, whichever could do it. And then it ended up being the guitar player. And it's quite a big difference in sound between the piano and the guitar. And it suited my music, I think, with the guitar in the end. So then for some time it was pretty steady with the drummer Michael Dalgas and Tor Madsen on the guitar, but we had changing bass players for some time, and more due to busy, working guys. Bass players are very often busy. So finally 2 years ago it was Tobias that he became a steady member of the group, and actually not a long time before we recorded the album. So and then it just everything seemed to fall in place.
Right on.
With that, with that group of musicians. And it's hard for me to say over how long time I wrote the music, but I think I wrote the tunes over a longer span of time. And it just seemed to fit that group. And some of the songs I have performed also in other groups, but they kind of fit better for the Bastards.
Obviously, you're releasing this during a global pandemic. Talk to me a little bit about your feelings on putting music out during this very strange time on the planet.
Definitely. The first single, The Humble Warrior, that is buried on side 2 on the record, wouldn't have been the first single if it wasn't... if there was no COVID-19. But it was, in a way, a little bit lucky for me that this pandemic happened, because it gave me a lot of time to actually do the last work, get in touch with the Handle with Care, who made the pressing of the vinyl, and also get really, everything done with my artist from Latvia, Ela Mesul. So, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, it was almost like a blessing, because a lot of my other work was cancelled, so I had a lot of time on my hands to get the record finished. And I would originally probably have put out either Fat Sugar Salt and Tragic, the first track, or South of North Dakota as the first single, but because of the pandemic and staying at home for a long time and only playing by myself. And I did, a ton of Corona concerts, like every day at 3 o'clock Central European time. I did a concert for half an hour, and a lot of people tuned in, and it was always me alone, or a few times with my father, and a few times with my brothers. They are both musicians. But a lot of solo concerts, so it just felt right to put out the solo track. So that is an example that COVID-19 definitely changed something about this album.
Talk to me a little bit about your roots in jazz. What was your childhood like? How did you get involved with music?
Yeah. So I come from a musical family. In Denmark, we say from a family with a piano. And we do have an upright at home also. And my father is sort of pretty good amateur musician. He earns quite a bit from playing music, but he's also a school teacher. But so music was around all the time when I was a child, and I started singing in choir probably from age 5 and started playing the recorder from age 6, changing to the clarinet at age 10. And my dream was to play the saxophone. I really wanted that, but I was not allowed to until I was 11, which at that time I didn't like, but now I felt blessed because it gave me at least a rudimentary idea of what the clarinet, so I can kind of play the clarinet now, which is very good for doubles, you know. So I think my parents might have done that to me in a subtle way, that I had to play the clarinet first to so to speak earn the right to play the saxophone, to show that I actually really wanted to. And then I was lucky that I grew up in a small town in western Jutland, Ribe, the smallest town, the oldest town of Denmark. And especially in the 90s, there was a very vibrant music life, rhythmic music life, most thrash and death metal, grunge kind of music. And there was local music, I don't know what to call it, an institution or practice room facility that had more than 300 members. And at that time, it was like the third largest in Denmark, after one in Copenhagen and one in Aarhus, which is pretty crazy for a little town of like 15,000 inhabitants. So there was so much going on, and I joined a band with some of my friends when I was also 11, I think, and we made it to play at festivals, and we played together until we were 18, 19 years old, and started to move away from the town. And we basically every day was just, coming home from school, more or less grabbing the instrument and going to either a practice in the local music school, or going to have a saxophone lesson with a music teacher, or going to just play with my friends, where half of the time we, of course, drank sodas and ate candy, but listened to music also, So I was very lucky to grow up in a time where there was so much of that stuff happening in my hometown.
What jazz musicians inspired you?
So first I was mostly inspired by bands like Tower of Power, and so some kind of, and Beatles, more like rock, soul, funk. Maceo Parker maybe also, but then I had a saxophone teacher that kind of luckily gave me John Coltrane ballads, I think, for one of like my first John Coltrane record, which I think was a pretty good introduction to John Coltrane. And I remember getting a compilation of jazz artists where there was the things that stands most out to me was Paul Desmond and Dave Brubeck, Take 5. That really, really, that really made me want to be able to play that song. And then Stan Getz on a version of Stella by Starlight. Those two tracks from the compilation was really cool. And at that time, I guess I had been 13, 14. I joined a jazz band in the local music school. And there was a multi-talented guy that first, I think he played guitar in a rock band really good. Then he changed to playing bass in our jazz ensemble. And then he changed to playing piano in our jazz ensemble. And he was able to do all of that stuff. But he lived on my street. So we did a lot of jam sessions, sometimes late at night, coming home from a concert. I have to mention there was also a jazz club called Jazz Inn that held crazy concerts for a little town. Like I remember hearing Adam Nussbaum and Randy Brecker, among others, but really some good international jazz musicians came through our very little town. So sometimes we came home from a concert like that and were just totally inspired, and took his electric piano out in a small room so we wouldn't wake up his parents, and then we jammed late night. And yeah, and he also helped me. Through him I discovered like Pat Metheny and
cool.
Things like that.
So if you come to Kansas City to play a live show, how would you describe the experience of a live show from you?
I think I wrote in the press release that what you hear is what you get, and that is what we aim for with this record. So it's very live, actually. I mean, the record is recorded in one room we of course took very good time before we started recording, to put the sound right, because you get spilled from everywhere, between everywhere. So we were almost had a mix, from the get-go. And then of course we notched it and made it even better later. But and I would say that even though we have compositions and we have arrangements, kind of, but I really always tell my musicians to go for the openings, I call it. And that can especially be in the start of a song or the end of a song, it seems. So we can go in a more, it's not like free jazz, but it's more free. So we can like vamp out on something, or maybe just start on an ostinato and see where it takes us. And so I try to keep things loose and open.
When we do return to the stage after COVID-19 has calmed down and gone away, what do you hope both the musician and fans realize about this time away from music?
I have to speak for myself personally, and it have given me. I've been blessed like the last 6 years, because I play in the regional ensembles in Scandinavia that earns me a living, from just playing my saxophone. And also playing, with DJs at big companies' parties in Denmark, that gives a lot of money and stuff like that. But the COVID-19 gave me a time to actually dig into my own philosophy about music and finding new exercises and inventing new things for which I haven't been doing for some years. So. I think for me, reflection is something that comes to mind. For me, that what the COVID-19 have done.
Hey, Anders, thank you for taking some time out today. Thank you again for the album. I'm looking forward to putting it on the show. So thank you again for reaching out.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Denmark, America, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com for everything Neon Jazz all the time. Go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.